let's welcome Matt Tapley and Shelly Calcagno, who are today sharing about their book, Cyber-Master and The Invisibility Cape. It's an inspiring adventure for kids and families. So let's welcome them to the show. Thank you so much for being here with us, Matt and Shelly.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. So we did talk about how this comes out of your own experience. We're in the Christmas season. We know it can be a difficult time for people, and your book does address a difficult conversation around grief, around loneliness, and invisibility. So can you maybe take us back a little bit, and what is this book really about, and how did it really start?
So really, this book is a creative retelling of my family's journey. And Shelly and her husband Tav and their kids have been close friends with our family for years. We went to Bible school together, been on staff together a couple times, and our kids grew up together as close friends. And so when our youngest daughter, Sarah, was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 8, that was a dramatic change for our family, and we had to navigate that. And so what we wanted to do is dig into the story. This is really kind of the first in a series, and we're starting with our son Joey, our middle child, who in the journey of Sarah's illness kind of experienced a sense of invisibility in that often the attention goes toward the sick child. And so we wanted to use kind of that superhero motif to kind of retell the story in a creative way, but to address some of those big emotions that a lot of kids can feel.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much, because whether it's that exact story or a similar story, we can all have these moments and seasons in life where we feel unseen.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean? How do I navigate that? Especially when it can feel personally a little maybe selfish, or why should I feel this way when someone else is going through that? So, so this book touches on a lot of deep emotions like grief, invisibility, and it's also about superheroes. And so how did you navigate those kind of the excitement of superhero with also real life struggles?
Well, for sure, this book, for me, I feel so honored that I got to write this book with Matt. Just, as you said, our families have been so close, and, we just, have those years of relationship. But I really think that, this book is fun and inspiring, but it's also just so tender because it's a story of a real family. And I think that oftentimes in life, children and adults and families too, you go through things, and like a situation like this with a critical illness in a family, you go through it and you just feel so alone.
Yeah.
Because you're just engulfed in everything that's happening. My hope for this book and how we've, tried to make it fun but also meaningful is just that people will know that they're not alone in a situation like this. And I feel like that's such a gift to someone in a hard season, to know that someone else has walked through that. And I'm just so grateful that, Matt and Lisa and their family have been willing just to share their journey in the hopes that it will help and support other kids and families.
Yeah, I think an important part of that too is that it's geared towards kids. Because again, another part of walking through something like that as a family is that often people are asking how the parents are doing. They're asking them, how are you doing? How can we help you? And the other siblings and kids may not get that as well. And so this is an opportunity for them to process that. So writing for kids is quite different probably than writing for adults. And so it takes a little bit different creativity. How did you sort of balance all that in this book?
Well, I think, Shelly actually has experience. She's written another kid's book. And so she was serving on our foundation board, and we started talking about, could we, creatively retell this story? And so we started kind of, I guess, storyboarding a little bit, bouncing some ideas around, and then took some writing sessions together and found actually, I think just, the inspiration and I think God's help in the retelling of the story, which was creative and has that fun, imaginative side, but really gets to touch some of those deep places, because that's really the goal, is to try to help kids and families process some of that stuff. And so I think it was just through the process of bouncing ideas around.
Yeah. And this whole process for me has been very, I've just kind of held it just so gently, because, just wanting to make sure we honor Matt and his family and their story, and they being willing to share it.
Yeah.
I loved that we could create these characters based on their kids and just
Yeah.
knowing their personalities. I just feel like the way it turned out, just making superhero versions of his kids was really fun. And our
Yeah.
kids used to play superheroes all the time when they were little.
Right.
Right.
So it just felt, yeah, it was just a really, that part of the process, it was just really fun and special.
It's amazing, and
Yeah.
how it will connect with
Yeah.
other kids in that
Mhm.
way. So we're going to continue this conversation talking about the Sarah Tapley Foundation. But just as we close here, what is one encouragement that you would maybe give to a family or a child right now that is walking through a season of either grief or that kind of loneliness feeling?
I think I would encourage the adults that are listening that kids are experiencing and picking up a whole lot more than perhaps we might give them credit for. Even when we're trying to shield them from the heavier issues of life, kids are quite intuitive but also resilient. And so to have that conversation and to lean in there and see how they're doing and really wait and listen and probe a bit, I think that would be so helpful for the next generation walking through these things.
Yeah, so not only is this book a great story for kids, but it could also be a resource for those conversations
Absolutely.
to begin. So we're going to continue this conversation, so stay with us as we hear about their foundation. Well, welcome back. I'm joined with Shelly and Matt, who have been talking about their new book, Cyber-Master. And really, this all began out of your own personal story, Matt, yours and your family. And that is also what birthed the Sarah Tapley Foundation. So could you share more about what the foundation is and how it came to be?
Yeah, so the Sarah Tapley Foundation exists to come alongside families of those who have children with critical illness. We want to come alongside those families and help in practical, spiritual, emotional ways, because really the birth of it was our own experience, our own family experience. Again, when our youngest daughter was diagnosed with cancer and we're suddenly thrust into this fight of our lives in a medical system, there's a lot of associated costs that you don't even really realize, but you have to pay for parking to be at the hospital and the meals that you're eating, and then the kids at home and caring for them. And so we wanted to um, basically pay forward a lot of what we experienced in our journey. Our church family rallied around us. The school that our kids were part of rallied around us. Friends from far and wide got around us, and when our daughter needed treatments that were outside the conventional medical system, people rallied and donated funds so that she could get that needed care. And so we wanted to take that experience that we had had and make that available to more families than just ours, because we weren't the only ones sitting in those hospital rooms.
Yeah.
And we realized there's a great need.
So how does that play out? You know, you're working with a family who's walking through that. How do you balance really those practical ways of supporting them and helping them with also just being for them in the thick of what is probably the most painful time in their life? How do you balance those two things?
I've been so just impressed by the work of the Sarah Tapley Foundation. We have an incredible person on staff, Abby Clattenburg, and she is the point of contact with so many families. And honestly, till I sat on the board, I didn't really understand the depth. Again, you don't know something unless you walk through it. Just the depth of what a lot of these families are going through in, the darkest days of their lives. So I think the foundation has been so good at, providing resources practically, but I also feel like there's been that personal connection of support that so many of them have needed, again, knowing that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And so I just have really appreciated that. And just that, of course, the hope too that the love of Jesus is just flowing through everything that we do to these families and their children.
Yeah, and one of the big parts, and that's unique to the Sarah Tapley Foundation, is that you hope to really help the siblings of those of who maybe their sibling is critically ill. Now, we did talk about this a little bit when we talked about your book, and that's why it was written. But why is that so important to you? Why is that a big part of who the Sarah Tapley Foundation is?
Well, again, because of the journey that we've walked, and as our kids have grown and matured, Abby Clattenburg also happens to be our oldest daughter, who is our director of communications for the Sarah Tapley Foundation. And our kids, Abby and Joey, have talked about their experiences, now in, post journey, and hearing from their vantage point, even when people are saying, how's your sister? I understand as an adult, this is the biggest thing going on in your life, so that's why I'm asking you that. But to a child, it feels like you're not asking about me, and the guilt and all of that stuff that comes with that. And so we wanted to, we walk that through with our own kids of unburdening them. That's not selfish, and that's understandable, and realize that has to be compounded through the various families that are walking these kinds of journeys. And so we really wanted to get in there and try to help facilitate those conversations.
Yeah, that's incredible. So maybe can you share a story of impact of a family who has been changed through the Sarah Tapley Foundation?
There's been so many.
Yeah, honestly, there's been so many
Yeah.
stories. I think a conglomeration of the stories would be one of the things that we've discovered is we've been receiving internal referrals from some of the local hospitals in our area is compounding issues. So people that are recent immigrants that sit outside of our healthcare system
Okay, yeah.
and needing, a place to stay, let alone a place, they've got to choose between working and eating or sending their kid for vital treatment. And so to be able to step in there and say, let us help, let us lift some of the burden of those bills, those things. And so those stories have been on repeat and has just been an incredible privilege to walk that out.
That's beautiful. And again, something that can be often overlooked, right? Because although in that moment they're walking through a season with a sick child, life still goes on.
That's
and
right.
so there are still bills to be paid. There are still things to think about. And so the Sarah Tapley Foundation really helps to ease that burden for a lot of families. So maybe for someone watching today, especially as we enter into the Christmas season, whether it's right now, they're walking through a difficult season of grief, or whether it's something else that's going on in their life, what would you say to them as they enter a season where when you look around, it can feel like everybody else is full of joy and hope, and I just don't feel that. What would you say to them today?
I always go to Ecclesiastes 4. There's times in our life, it talks about there's a time, there's a season for everything in our life. And sometimes our seasons are great. They're like mountaintop seasons, and other seasons are hard and difficult. And I always just believe that God is just in the middle of all those seasons, and he walks with us so closely. He'll never leave us. He'll never forsake us. So I would just encourage people, whatever season you're in, if it's a hard one, know that he's there with you in your season, what you're going through right now.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you so much for sharing your story, Matt, as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, for more information, you can go to 700club.ca.